For us from Washington. Jeff, what can you tell us about the suspects? As we mentioned, that we know that they worked for the Chinese military.
Well, that's right, and it's going to be hard for U.S. officials to get them into custody. In fact, they acknowledged today that that was highly unlikely, but this is, part of the pattern that we've seen in the past with Chinese hackers. Often they are linked back to Chinese military, and that's what this was, according to investigators, an intelligence operation to gather as much information about Americans as possible, and the numbers are really staggering. 145 million or so Americans' personal data gathered in this hack. That's nearly half of all Americans.
So, Jeff, what exactly were the hackers after?
Well, they were after Social Security information, driver's license information, date of birth information, your name. So everything that is valuable to any American in terms of your personal information when you go to purchase a car or buy a house or anything like that. So this is the type of breach that could do a significant amount of damage to any American's personal information. But I did ask the FBI what is happening with this information that was stolen. Is it being used? So far, they say it hasn't been used, which really fits a pattern with Chinese hackers. We've seen in the past with previous breaches that they often gather up as much information as they possibly can and then hold on to the information. The question is, to what end?
So you mentioned that the likelihood of the Justice Department getting their hands on these people who have been indicted probably pretty low. So then what are the next steps in the investigation?
Well, what happened today is a major step in an investigation like this when, according to U.S. officials, you have a nation state behind this kind of breach. One thing U.S. officials tried to do is name the offender to, in their view, hopefully prevent future hacks. It doesn't seem like it's the kind of tactic that's working. We've just, we see so many of these. The difference here is the sheer volume of Americans affected by this.
Latest on the coronavirus emergency, there are some startling new numbers. Out now, more than 40,000 people are now infected around the world, and the death toll has surpassed the SARS outbreak, at least 910 people killed. Maggie Rulli is in Yokohama, Japan, where that cruise ship is still being quarantined and the number of infections is growing. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, George. Well, with these new numbers coming in, this cruise ship now has the highest concentration of confirmed cases of the virus outside of China. The U.S. Embassy is calling this an unprecedented situation and says they're now even visiting patients who are American with this virus in the hospital. This morning, the number of confirmed novel coronavirus cases on board this quarantined cruise ship nearly doubling. 65 additional patients, bringing the total number of infected on board to 135, including at least 23 Americans.
You never think that something like this is going to happen when you're just on vacation, living life.
Rebecca Frazier from Oregon is one of them. And while for some the coronavirus can be serious and deadly, so far for Rebecca, her treatment in an isolated hospital room on shore has been going well.
It doesn't even feel like a cold, to be perfectly honest. I wouldn't have known that there was anything wrong with me if they hadn't tested me.
Her husband had to stay behind on the ship. So far, he's tested negative.
They said it was just going to be 3 days, but then when she got there, it was going to be 14. So it's a lot longer than we expected.
He's on day 6 of a minimum 14-day quarantine on board the Diamond Princess. Many passengers on the ship are now
information coming from the Ukraine. There are a lot of agendas in the Ukraine currents, and we can't take anything we receive from the DOJ to anybody who wishes to provide us information that they think is relevant. But as I did say to Senator Graham, we have to be very careful with respect to any information coming from the Ukraine. There are a lot of agendas in the Ukraine. There are a lot of cross currents. And we can't take anything we receive from the Ukraine at face value. And for that reason, we had established an intake process in the field so that any information coming in about Ukraine could be carefully scrutinized by the department and its intelligence community partners so that we could assess its provenance and its credibility. And, that is true for all information that comes to the department relating to the Ukraine, including anything Mr. Giuliani might provide.